Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we're moving to the next phase now, and we just want to put in some kind of principle around or components of concept models before we move into the principles. So now, for every concept model, you've got four main components. And these are the things that we need to just look out for before you create or your model. So the first thing is you've got what I call the subject, you've got the interactions, you've got the structure, and you've got the aesthetics. Now, let's take a closer look at some of these. Now, what is the subject? The subject usually it's a noun and usually specify different entities. So, for instance, these subjects could also be in form of your construct, it could be in form of your variable, it could be in form of your subsystems or units. But there are normally, usually, at least one or two subjects in every model that you're going to create. So you think about it when you have your test. The first question is, what are the four main components? So you consider the subject first. The second thing is about the interaction between these subjects. Now, this interaction talks about majorly verbs. So how um does this what is the interaction between these subjects? What kind of interaction do you have? What is the association? What are the dependencies? What are the sequence of actions? So how do they relate, communicate together? So this the interaction, which is the second component, simply speaks to the interaction between the subjects that you have defined. The third is about your structure, and this is really important because it brings out the meaning in your model, as we're going to see shortly. So you can have the same different models, speaking to the same subject, but because of different structure that you have in there, they may convey different meaning. So what I mean is you've got the same number of subjects, you've got the same form of interaction, but the way you place them, within that model could actually give them different meaning, different from what you're really thinking about. So you need to consider the structure. It is really important. And sometimes this structure could be domain specific. So, for instance, you might have the same subject and the same interaction, but if they are within different domain, then the structure might be different. So, for instance, if I'm developing software and I'm developing um, software that speaks to programmer, the way I arrange those components, those subjects within that model might be different if I'm creating the same model, but I'm presenting this model to stakeholders, perhaps let's say project managers, because their understanding of the domain differs. Okay, so how you structure those subjects and their interaction is really important, and so you need to bear this in mind. And then the third one is about the aesthetics. The aesthetics is just about the beautification. How do you now beautify? What kind of color themes do you have? How do you um, pull in those colors or those themes together in a way that's going to appeal to the audience that you are presenting that model to? So specifically, this talks about your color, your theme, your artistics, your audience is also it could also be domain specific. So let's look at this. This is the same concept but different models. Okay, but then they seems to be presenting different meanings. So if we want to look at this and say what are the four elements of or four components, I think components will be the right word because we use components here. before. So what are the four components of what's it called now, of the concept or the models that we have here, looking at model A and model B? They are actually the same concept, but different models. And if you look at it closely, you will see that they might actually be passing different meanings. Now, because of our time, let's move forward. Now, when we look at this, the four elements we want to identify the subjects here. So the subjects here, and I want to apologize if you are not able to, because this is, if this is not in your field and you struggle a little bit to understand this is about process mining and responsible design. So what we have here is we've got, and I think it's time for me to make use of my pen. One second. So you remember that we said we've got four components. So the first one is the subjects. The second component here is their interaction. The third one is the structure. And then the fourth one is the what we call the theme or the aesthetics. So when we look at this, we said that the structure, the subjects are actually now, they are the key component, they are the construct. So when we look at this, we found that majorly these accuracy, confidentiality, transparency, organizational change, organizational structure, responsible RPA, they are different constructs here. They are different subjects here. And we want to see this model is just trying to explain how these subjects or these constructs, how they interact. Now, the interesting thing there is this first model, the model A, did not really have clarity regarding how these subjects or these components, how they interact. So the only thing that can give us an idea of how they interact is how they are structured. So again, speaking to the third one, structure is just how you place them. So we place them in a way that shows some form of dependencies, but then is really not very clear. But when we look at model B, we found that we've got the responsible design, the same subjects, but here we can see their interaction, using those arrows. And we can also see their interaction using this. Then we could also see their structure. Now we place them in a way that it shows that responsible design, actually speaks to the four components that we have here. For instance, if we've decided to just stop responsible design, this what's it called now, rectangle representing responsive design, if we had stopped it here, it will only mean or convey the meaning that responsible design only covers accuracy, confidentiality, and transparency. But looking at this, it just shows that responsible design is in the first layer, process mining is in the second layer. So if we put in process mining before responsible design, it could have actually mean different things. So what I'm trying to say is that the way you structure, the components or the subjects, it can give different meaning to your model. And finally, we found out that looking at model B, this fairness, accuracy, confidentiality, and all that influences organizational change, organizational culture, and responsible RPA. What I'm trying to explain here is to see how the subjects, the components, that is the subject interaction, structure, information fits in together using this very simple model. And the final thing here is about the aesthetics, which is the theme. So here, this theme is more conservative, unlike this with so many colors, different colors. You're really not sure what this, the meaning of those colors and what they are trying to convey. So when you look at this, it depends again on your kind of or the audience that you have. This just in a way try to push forward, or demonstrate those four key components of a conceptual model that I described earlier on, and that's about the subjects, the interaction between the subjects, the structure, how you place, different components or different subjects within that model, and then the aesthetics, how you present them in terms of their color and the themes. So here is just buttressing that explanation I made earlier on. So you've got the subjects, you've got those interaction, the flow of information between the blocks, the scope of DPR. So when you look at this, it means that GDPR here, where you place GDPR, simply means that GDPR speaks to all components within this subject. And then the structure demonstrate the layout of the subjects and the interaction, and then the aesthetics, the black and white colors, the borders, the arrows, and their boundaries and all that. So that's essentially important. So when you think about your model, you think about the components. So you ask yourself, now, this idea, this concept, what are the subjects? What is the interaction between these subjects? How can I structure them? How can I position different components in a way that we project the meaning, push out the meaning that I want the audience to have. And then again, the theme, the aesthetics also buttresses, allows you to put forward a compelling argument, regarding the structure.